the Well of Wandering Hearts, and the promise of 7 years. Jacob lifted his feet and walked into the golden light of the east. His journey had been long, through wilderness and over mountains, with nothing but a staff in his hand and a blessing in his soul. He was a man searching for a place to belong, following the whispers of a promise made under a ladder of stars. The dust of the road clung to his sandals, but his eyes were fixed on the horizon, searching for the home of his mother's people. At the edge of the world, or so it seemed, Jacob found a wide field. In the center of the field sat a well, its mouth covered by a massive, heavy stone. Around it, 3 flocks of sheep lay resting in the heat of the day, waiting for the water that only comes when the sun begins to dip. Jacob felt a surge of hope. A well meant people, and people meant news. Jacob approached the men who sat nearby, their faces weathered by the sun. "My brothers, where are you from?" he asked with a voice full of weary kindness. "We are from Haran," they replied shortly. Jacob's heart leaped in his chest. Haran, the very place his mother had told him to find. He leaned forward, his weariness forgotten in an instant. "Do you know Laban?" Jacob asked, his breath catching. "We know him," they said. "And is it well with him?" Jacob pressed. The shepherds nodded, pointing toward a cloud of dust rising in the distance. "It is well. And look, here comes his daughter Rachel, leading her father's sheep to the water." Jacob turned, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Rachel arrived at the well, her presence bringing a freshness to the dry afternoon. She was a shepherdess, strong and capable, yet there was a beauty about her that Jacob had never encountered in all his travels. She looked at the stranger by the well with curiosity. Jacob did not wait for the others. He felt a sudden, divine strength surging through his tired limbs. Usually, it took all the shepherds together to move the great stone from the well's mouth, but Jacob, moved by the sight of his kinswoman, stepped forward alone. He gripped the edges of the massive rock, his muscles straining under the weight. With one great heave of love and determination, he rolled the stone away, uncovering the cool, life-giving water beneath. Once the well was open, Jacob did not think of his own thirst. Instead, he reached down and drew the water for Rachel's flock. He moved with a steady rhythm, pouring the water into the troughs so the thirsty sheep could drink. It was an act of service, a sign of the man he was becoming, one who cared for the needs of others before his own. When the work was done, Jacob looked at Rachel, and the emotions of his journey finally overflowed. He told her who he was, the son of her Aunt Rebecca, a relative come from far away. He stepped toward her and wept for joy, the tears washing away the dust of his lonely travels. He was no longer a wanderer. He had found his family. Rachel didn't lose a moment. She ran back to her father's house to share the incredible news. When Laban heard that his sister's son had arrived, he dropped everything and ran to the field. He threw his arms around Jacob, kissing him and welcoming him into his home. "Surely you are my own flesh and blood," Laban declared, leading him toward the tents. Jacob stayed and worked, but his heart had already made its choice. When Laban asked what his wages should be, Jacob's answer was simple. "I will serve you 7 years for Rachel." And so he did. The Bible tells us that those 7 years seemed to him but a few days, because of the great love he had for her. Love had turned labor into a song, and time into a bridge toward a beautiful future.